Welcome back to another episode of the NOIVAI Podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Owens III, and today we're diving into a part of industrial operations that most people may think about when they're walking through plants or buildings, but they absolutely should. Dust collection, air quality, filtration, the systems that keep plants safe, compliant, efficient, and running the way they're supposed to. And joining me is someone who lives at the center of that world, Brian Mathews, engineering manager at Scientific Dust Collectors, a company known for pushing the boundaries of filtration technology and engineering performance. Brian, it's great to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Nathan.
Brian, before we get into the whole technology, the engineering side, I would love for you to share your story. How did you first get into the world of dust collection and industrial air quality?
Well, I got out of school, 20 years ago now. Man, I'm old. And graduated with a mechanical engineering degree, and
Oh, nice. Okay.
my first job was in time in the automotive industry, and didn't do engineering, just all paperwork, and did a little tutoring with one of my friends in physics. And I'm like, you know what? I really miss doing calculations,
Okay.
doing some nerd stuff. So, got out, gave my notice, and a position at Scientific Dust Collectors opened up in 2008, and they hired me as an engineer with the prospects of taking over the engineering department
Nice. Okay.
once the engineering manager was ready to retire. So I came in here, started doing some initial testing, and I really fell in love with the business. And the other thing too that I didn't know I personally needed was a variety of a job. I'll projects where I'm working on coal dust, and then I'll have a
Yeah.
project where I'm working on lead for batteries. I'm working with wood dust. I'm working with powders, and
Wow.
I get to wear different hats. I get to go in the field. I get to do quoting, sales, interact with reps, and so I get to see it all. And now, I've gone to trainings. I did ductwork school back in, 2011. So, designed up so many systems from start to finish, figuring
Yeah.
out static pressures, ductwork design, going in the field, and, troubleshooting different applications, filter medias, anything and everything. In 18 years, I've basically seen it all. And now I've got the knack where now it's so bad to where I'm driving and I'm looking at the backs of buildings now to see what kind of pollution control they have.
Nerding out just by looking at
Yep.
some of the buildings. Yeah.
So I,
Yeah.
I love what I do, and our whole thing and our philosophy is, I want the dust collector to last as long as possible. We want the filter life to last as long as possible. Here at
hmm
Scientific, I've got welding machines, not sewing machines. And so,
Mm.
I want to solve somebody's dust collection problem, and that way they don't have to think about it. And, filter life, hey, you get 10 years filter life, awesome, cool. Now you don't have to worry about
hmm
calling me up for filters, once in a while. We're not into the whole replacing filters every 3 to 6 months. You know,
mm
that
mm.
that's a model that's out there for some, and that's just not us. And so that's what we like to do. And we end up getting the tough applications where somebody's in there, they've been trying and struggling with filter life, and now
Yeah.
they're calling around because they're not, it's like this can't be this hard. It's 2026. We're not curing cancer. It's just dust collection. So
So no, and that's a great point, and that's actually a great segue into, maybe deep and dive more into the technology. What makes your filtration and clean technology fundamentally different? I think you kind of got into that from the traditional baghouse versus, cartridge systems.
So we have a patent, and so I kind of give you a little history. So
Mm,
the baghouse dust collection industry started back in the 50s and the 60s
mm,
when they were just doing big filters, and it was like, power plants and things like that.
mhm.
And they needed to develop a cleaning system because the old way of doing it was you had to shut the systems down to clean the filter bags off, and they wanted to use compressed air, and they found that you can use compressed air in a pipe, but it can only send a jet of air so far because one air compressed air in a pipe, but it can only send a jet of air so far because when air
Mhm.
compressed air leaves a pipe or an orifice,
Oh,
it's coming
wow.
out at Mach
Okay.
1.0, and then it slows down. And so if you're familiar with the Venturi in a baghouse, are you familiar with the Venturi?
Hmm.
Actually, hang on, I think I got one. Here, hang on.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I can do a little sailing demo.
Let's
So,
do it.
so this is a Venturi.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And so
Mm-hmm.
the reason they created this is because, when you have, actually, look at that, I even have my little filter bag thing here. So you put this thing in the top of the bag and it has to seal
Mm-hmm.
off the bag. The rule in dust collection is
Mm-hmm.
you cannot clean a filter unless you stop the flow of air coming out of it. And so
Okay.
they tried back when they were developing this to have a little drilled hole in a pipe clean a big, huge 6-inch diameter bag.
Oh
And they
wow.
couldn't do it because it would run out of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so they came up with this Venturi that has an inside diameter of about 2 inches or so, two and a half,
Mm-hmm.
2 inches. And that's why they placed the purge tube about 3 to 5 inches away from the top of it.
Mm-hmm.
Found that in that, space, they can actually seal off the hole of a 2 to 2.5 inch diameter hole. And then once you stop that, now you can use the rest of the energy to clean the rest of the filter bag up to 12, maybe even 16 feet down. And so that's
Wow.
what they developed. And that's when baghouses kind of were born back in the, 50s and 60s. And so that was how it was for a while. We had some
Yeah.
engineers that were up in Wisconsin, where Scientific Dust Collectors was originally created, off the back of a
Mm-hmm.
company called Ding's Magnets up in Milwaukee. And there was a couple
Magnets.
guys,
Okay.
and they started playing around with nozzles, rocket nozzles, and they found that they could use a converging diverging rocket nozzle, and it
Yeah.
would increase the flow of air coming out at above Mach. And so the air that was leaving the nozzle was coming out at like Mach 1.7, Mach 1.8. And
Oh
then
wow.
then what they did is, now that it's coming out at Mach, now we move this purge tube away about 18 inches, and then
Yeah.
air expands out of a jet at a 15-degree conical angle. And so it
Uh-huh.
would come down, and then it gets down to that bottom of that diameter of the bag, and it actually seals the whole thing off. And then it slows down, and now we can back flush the entire length of the filter bag, and we take out this Venturi. So the Venturi in our system is gone.
Wow.
And we found that it actually allows us to clean better.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't know how much better, they could only calculate it. Um, and so that was that's the big difference. So, and we have that, they got that patented back in 1979, I believe, and then they first started making collectors 1981.
79? So this goes back.
1979.
Wow.
Yep. So we've been in
Wow.
business, so our first patent was 1979. Um, and that's when they started making dust collectors. Uh, and we also do another development change where in the bag house, there's
Mm-hmm.
two different ways you can have the inlet. So the general industry way is to have hopper inlet. So the air comes into the hopper, has some diffusing
Okay.
baffle, and it goes up and it creates this upflow. And what they try to
Yeah.
do there is they put as many filters as you can in there and worry about air to cloth ratio. And you just put a bunch of socks in there, and the air dust flows up. The problem you have with
Yeah.
that is when you try to pulse clean the dust off, it falls down, it gets swept
Uh-huh.
back up in that upward airflow and gets put back on the bag. Um,
Mm.
Scientific came up with our high side inlet. And so we actually have the air coming in at the top of the bag, or at the high side here, and we have
Mm-hmm.
a dead zone. And it's just a dead zone baffled, and it comes in, all the heavy stuff falls down into the hopper, and all the light stuff goes over to the filter bags.
Okay.
And then we also have a wider bag spacing where we'll usually have, about 3 inches between bag to bag. Everybody else is usually 1 to 1.5. And
Gotcha.
so with our wider bag spacing, high side inlet, and the patented cleaning system we've got, that's been kind of our claim to fame. So we will actually, let's say wood dust in the industry, it's one of the easiest dusts to
Yeah.
collect. The industry
Yeah.
standard is an air to cloth ratio of, let's say, 8 to 1, maybe 9, maybe 10 if they are feeling bold and feisty. Um, and we start around 17 and we go all the way up to
Okay.
21, even 22. And
Oh
I've
wow.
got wood dust collectors running at 18 to 1 air to cloth ratio that have over 15 years of filter life.
Wow. Wow. That that is insane. So, okay. the industries that you're typically working in. Let's talk about that. I mean, I have seen A to Z manufacturing units, and I have walked plenty of plants and
Okay.
operations, and look up or look to the side and see these massive,
Yep.
structures. What segments are you typically working in?
We handle it all.
Okay.
And the biggest thing for us is just breaking into an industry and getting over this industry standard. Like
Okay.
I said, the baghouses were developed back in the 50s and 60s. There was a bunch of, I would say engineers at the time that just they found out what works and
Mm-hmm.
they have to work this way. It has to be 3 to 1, or it has to be 4 to 1, 5 to 1, whatever it is, and they're not willing to entertain any other technologies.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's
Okay.
that's where we get into. So usually we get into customers when they have a problem with the old ways of doing dust collection. And once somebody switches
Mm-hmm.
to us, tries our technology, the word gets around,
Mm-hmm.
they come back, and we get multiple repeat business. And so
Okay.
one of our biggest customers is a battery company in Pennsylvania, and we handle over 8 million CFM with them. We've got over 100 units, and
Yeah.
they've got filters that last, filter life is seven years or more.
Yeah.
And we got HEPA filters with that. So I would say the battery industry is one of our biggest ones, the
Okay.
lead battery industry.
Okay.
Second to that is, just different lead battery industry. Second
Mm-hmm.
to that is, just different aggregates, clay,
Mm.
sandblasting, sand, glass.
What about
And
food
then one
and
of
what
the
about
things
food
we're
and
doing a lot.
bev? Some of those plants.
They are a different kind of segment. So they need what's called filter receivers because typically food and beverage, it's two things. One, you need to make it food grade if they're trying to save the dust.
Sure.
Uh,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Two, when they're doing their food and bev, they're using high vac systems and they're actually pneumatically conveying stuff around. And so when they're doing their food and
Mm.
bev, they're using high vac systems. And the
Okay.
food and bev, they're using high systems for because you're trying to usually put that into a plant. Um, so
Mm-hmm.
we're breaking into that segment now. I mean, originally Scientific didn't really
Okay.
have a good rolling machine equipment to get into there. We got a brand new roll in 2022, and now we can roll really thick plate and table and all that kind of stuff. So we're really able to get into that industry. And the other thing
Mm-hmm.
too with food is it's not a standard bag. They're using pleated bags.
Mm.
Actually here, I actually have you seen a pleated bag before?
I don't believe so.
All right, well, actually I have one here too. So this is a pleated bag. I'm an engineer. I
Oh,
just got
okay.
stuff. Yeah. You've probably
You
seen them.
got parts all over the place. I
I
have
got
seen
parts all
one
over
of
my
those.
office.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's like a miniature cartridge. And so
Okay, got it.
these
Okay.
pleated bags, and I've been in a bunch of food applications, General Mills and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. And they go with the pleated bags because one, they buy
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3 sets. They can wash them, they can let them
Mm-hmm.
dry in a room, and then
Mm-hmm.
when they do a food change or have to wash something out, they take the filters with it because they don't want to
Mm-hmm.
have any cross-contamination. They put new wash filters in and then they move on. And so they
Got
can
it.
get
Okay.
different filter life changes out of those. So um, that's where
Okay.
we're at. And then the other big thing is we're into wood. Like I said, because of our really superior air to
Makes
cloth
sense.
ratio,
Yeah.
we get into wood. And it's there's two different types of wood applications we get and wood customers we see. You have the small mom and pop shops that are
Mm-hmm.
just above a shop vac level, and they get to the point where now they have 1 or 2 people working and they need more than
Mm-hmm.
a big shop vac. So then they go and they call us up and say, hey, I need a dust collector. And I say, hey, it's going to be, 4 figures. And they, have a little twitch and it's like, okay. And they move on.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
Yeah.
and then you have these big, huge applications, like windows and then any shredding or
Mm-hmm.
sanding or big operations that are doing lumber. Uh, and they get these big systems in and then they work with it. Usually, furniture companies, things like that. And then what they're doing is then
Mm-hmm.
they will get these big systems where they will raise the collector up. They'll put their doing is then they will get
Mm-hmm.
these big systems where they will
Mm-hmm.
raise the collector up. They'll put a fan beneath it, and then they will blow that material into a tractor
Mm.
trailer and send it off to a company that will take it and pay them for it and use it for animal bedding and anything like that.
Wow. Okay, that is you opening my eyes up about how people are reusing byproducts of
Yeah.
dust,
Oh
and
yeah.
that is wow. Okay, I never thought about that. The reason why I even brought up the whole food and bev because I told you I'm originally from Indiana, but I used to when I was with Rockwell, I used to call on Wrigley in Chicago,
Yep.
which got a huge plant up there,
Mhm.
and then even before when I was interning, Kraft Foods is in your backyard in Champaign.
Mhm.
And I used to work there, and I think that was one of their largest plants. And they had a room where I know they had to keep it clean
Yep.
from that standpoint. And they had dry material coming in all the time, and
Yep.
but they had to keep that facility clean. So that's why I was
Oh
really
yeah.
thinking about that. Um, when a company upgrades to a system like yours, I know you kind of mentioned you got customers that's large, you got some mom and pop customers. What do they typically see as a measurable improvement? Is it energy? Is it maintenance? Is it downtime? Is it compliance? What are your thoughts there?
It's all the above, and it depends
Okay.
on why they came to us. I mean,
Yeah.
usually they come to us with complaints of either not enough suction and the system's
Mm-hmm.
undersized and they've been duct taping it together.
Mm-hmm.
Two, they've been struggling with filter life and they're changing filters every 6 weeks or 2 months or whatever, and they're having to shut down filters, changing filters every 6 weeks or 2 months
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, and they're having to shut down. Filters are expensive to replace.
Yeah.
Or they've just outgrown it, and they doubled the size of their facility, and they want to do it
Mm-hmm.
correctly. And so, we'll come in and, either us or we operate through independent reps throughout the country. We've got
Oh.
specialists that'll go in, see, what's going on, what they
Mm-hmm.
have existing and say, all right, you've got 10,000 CFM, you want to expand, let's get you 20,000 existing CFM, you want to expand, let's get you 20,000. We'll get you a
Mm-hmm.
big system, put it outside. And then once we figure that out, now we got to understand, all right,
Mm-hmm.
what are you
Okay.
needing? Our emissions guarantee is
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal. And I guess we also didn't realize how good we had it until we tested it.
Uh,
I don't know if you're familiar with ASHRAE at all, but in
no.
2016, ASHRAE came up with a standard, and they wrote it to hopefully encourage manufacturers to
Okay.
test their equipment. And we caught wind of it around 2018 and started looking into it and said, hey, you know what? That was the other thing too with us is, we've been challenged over the years. And, I'll say this, I'm very proud of the dust collection industry and how far we've
Uh-huh.
come. When I first started in 2008, we would all beat each other up, say, hey, yours over there, theirs doesn't work or ours doesn't work and their cookie cutters this and all that stuff. And,
Yeah.
as I've
Yeah.
been in the industry long enough, I've realized we don't do that to each other more. And we've realized that, there's a big enough pie that we can all take a couple slices from. And
Mm.
so what we're all
Mm-hmm.
trying to do now, it's all positive. We're saying, these are our features, these are our benefits, and we're selling on features, but we're not downplaying or down talking our competitors anymore. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
uh,
That was some of the things that they told us in sales training is like if you got to downplay your competitor, then you are not selling the
right, you're
value.
losing, right. If you're
Yeah.
coming
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
behind and
Mm-hmm.
downselling, you're losing. And so
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, you know, so we will guarantee in writing our emissions, we'll guarantee pressure drop, we'll guarantee filter life. And if they don't meet
Nice.
that, then we are on the hook for it. And as long as I've been here, we've never had to go back and, make any corrections
Yeah.
for that. I mean, we stand behind our equipment. And whenever problems do come up and I have to, make an emergency trip to the field, usually I'll find that it's something out of my control and that we weren't
Mm-hmm.
privy to or involved with.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
That's one
but
of the things I think about. Like, I think you kind of got into it. So when you're talking to customers, I mean, how do you? Um, well, let me back up for a second. In my mind, I think there are certain segments that definitely needs your technology. So it
right,
is a capex expenditure from that
yes.
standpoint. Um, but there may be other industries where it's more like an OpEx. How do you help customers kind of quantify that return on investment in a way that kind of resonates with plant managers or CFOs or whoever the stakeholders are?
That's still kind of a work in progress, I'll say,
Okay.
and I'll tell you why. And it just I wanted to make sure I finished up the ASHRAE thing because that's really something I'll
Yep.
dive in. Still kind of a work in, I'll dive in
Yeah.
with you too because um, So 199, we did the testing on it. We built our lab here, and it was six figures we spent to build our
Mm-hmm.
own lab. And
Mm-hmm.
we did testing on it, and we didn't realize how good our technology was. Now
Mm.
I've got data. We actually ran, it was, so the ASHRAE 199 is a standard where it treats a dust collector as a black box. And
Okay.
you put a known quantity of stuff into it, and you measure
Mm-hmm.
known variables coming out. Whatever those variables are, that's what you report. And so
Okay.
the
Okay.
dust was this wet ground marble. It's basically the inert powder, basically an aspirin. And so it's, it's
Mm.
powders that they could actually use to make aspirin if you cleaned it
Okay.
up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
typical industry, you'd probably run it at 5 or 6 to 1 air to cloth ratio. We ran it at 10 to 1. And the emissions that we got was even better than we were guaranteeing for the last 30 years. After the ASHRAE
Mm.
testing we did, we actually lowered our emissions guarantee because we saw, oh my goodness, our stuff is much better than we thought.
Mm-hmm.
And once I found, once we did all this testing, we had it accredited by a third-party lab. I started going to these ASHRAE meetings and get involved with ASHRAE.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've really developed that group there and that team. So the ASHRAE was created out of a technical group committee, TC
Mm-hmm.
5.4. So I go to all their meetings and I stepped up. I
Mm-hmm.
volunteered to be a secretary, then I was the vice chair, and then I was actually the chair of the
Nice.
committee. I actually did it. And I
Nice.
actually just rolled off as chair of that committee. And, and so now I've got friends and, you know, it, Kim, Phil Farr, Donaldson, that are on the committee
Yeah.
with me. And we're all kind of working together. And we're all kind of
Yeah.
realizing that we wrote this standard back in 2016, and it didn't really get the receipts that we were hoping for, and nobody kind of really cares.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is still treating dust collectors as a known commodity,
Mm.
and you got to pay for it. And we only complain about it when the costs get
Mm-hmm.
past a
Mm-hmm.
certain point. And now you're investing extra money because it's not
Yeah.
performing. Otherwise, nobody really
Mm-hmm.
cares. And one of the things we're kind of talking about amongst ourselves is, how do we change this to get ASHRAE up a level and
Mm-hmm.
get this standard up so that more people will actually use it?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because the biggest thing in dust collection is there is no national standard for dust collection emissions. There is the EPA does not set a minimum emissions level. It's all reliant upon all of the local jurisdictions. And so if you go to, you've got a
Wow.
dust collector, let's say in LA or Chicago, they are going to
Yeah.
have more stringent emissions than somebody in, the suburbs or, out in the middle of nowhere in Iowa or Illinois or wherever, because it depends on what you're doing. So there's no national standard for that. The closest thing that they have is MERV rating, but MERV rating applies to HVAC filters that you put into your furnace and you
Yeah.
replace. Dust collection, you're not replacing filters, you're repetitively cleaning them for longer filter life.
So that's, and the only reason why I know what Merv is because I actually had the CEO on my last podcast. I had the CEO of this company called Blade Air, and they were talking about Merv ratings,
Yep.
and out of Canada. But
Yep.
one of it's amazing from that standpoint. Then, I guess I'm kind of drawn back that you said that because in my mind, dust collection is almost a safety and
It
compliance
is.
issue, I would
Yep.
think, right?
Yep.
Air quality and things like that. So you saying there's no regulatory or environmental pressures that's
Not
shaping the
nationally,
industry
no.
right
The
now?
EPA does not, because they don't have the data to back it up. And so it's one of those things where they've just kind of relied on the localities. And I've seen specs
Yeah.
in locals like something in, let's say, Ohio or Iowa, where they have a requirement of 0.01 grains per dry standard cubic
Mm-hmm.
foot, that's nothing. Now, and then I've
Mm-hmm.
also gone
Mm-hmm.
to, seen in California or Illinois, like Chicago or New York,
Mm-hmm.
where they've got 0.001 or 0.002. That 10 to 1 factor, point oh one versus 0.001, that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then if
Wow.
it's depending on the
Wow.
dust, and they're more so focused on the carcinogens. And so like lead, that one they
Mm.
will
Mm-hmm.
regulate. Silica they're
Hmm.
regulating now, the hexavalent chromium, all of the ones that they're seeing that can lead to cancer, they'll focus on because it's
Hmm.
life.
They'll
The other
focus on
stuff,
those.
it's
Okay.
just more
Okay.
so, they're not going to set a national standard for wood dust or anything like that because, nobody's complaining about it. If wood ends up in their backyard, then they'll complain about it, and then they just handle it
Mm.
at the localized level. And so, that's kind of what me and the others on ASHRAE are coming up with. It's like, I've seen this and I'm trying to tell my
Uh-huh.
friends at ASHRAE, it's like, if we can work on developing like a MERV rating system for dust collectors and we can publish it on ASHRAE and we can give that to the EPA and see if we can get that involved. Now that gives them data that they can use to then use that to push a national standard for emissions.
Hmm.
But they're not going to just
Hmm.
go on a whim on their own because there's not really any call for it and there's, they don't have any time or data to do it.
Wow. So again, I'm taken aback. I would think there's a lot of conversations around, the shifting toward, well, it's politics at play too, but
Yes.
there's a shift toward sustainability and ESG reporting and how's that influencing dust collector or dust collection decisions anyway. I mean, do you see any kind of runway as more companies talk about sustainability and ESG reporting when it comes to dust collecting?
What's ESG? I'm not familiar
Oh,
with
I'm
that.
sorry. Environmental safety and governance. So,
Oh, okay.
um, when we talk about, again, people think about air quality.
Yeah.
I want to walk in the building. People are working in buildings more. They want more sustainable buildings where their carbon footprint is not, so high, and they're shifting toward more better technology when it comes to making sure air quality is great. They got the right energy for these buildings and things of that nature, and being more sustainable from that perspective. So, yeah.
I will say I've seen it in ASHRAE
Okay.
because I'm part of ASHRAE, and that's where dust collectors tended to just kind of fall because it's similar and it's in
Yeah.
that realm, but it's not. And
Yeah.
so being a part of ASHRAE, we've been trying as our industry to get more into ASHRAE to kind of get more recognition.
Yeah.
And everybody, honestly, Nathan, just sees dust collectors as, oh, it's just that thing that's over there. And they're all focusing
Hmm.
on the HVAC. And so all of the ESG is all focused on the HVAC and the,
Hmm.
filters there and the energy on that. And meanwhile,
Got
you've
it.
got, depending on the size of the facility, you've got a 300 horsepower motor that's doing a dust collector that nobody even cares about. That thing could just be, you know, wasting energy and spilling emissions, and there's nothing they're not focusing on. They're focusing on the HVAC.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. So let's zoom out and then I
Okay.
kind of look ahead there. Um, when it comes to like AI or
Mhm.
automation or Industry 4.0 now, I think it's Industry 4.0 now. How does that showing up in dust collection today?
So what I would say to that is we're getting more availability in tracking some technology and tracking
Hmm.
pressure drop and any of the settings, but at the same time too, it's so process dependent and the costs are still high. And if it's
Hmm.
just a run-of-the-mill dust collector, honestly, they don't need it. If the customer is willing to, you know, take a look at the pressure drop once a day on the dust collector
Hmm.
and say, hey,
Hmm.
is it, at 1 inch or 5 inches? And if they see it's at a problem, shut it down, take a look at it. If the
Hmm.
customers are not willing to look at it, now they're having to get the technology to monitor it because they can't monitor it themselves because they're so big. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
from an AI standpoint, I mean, I'm seeing a lot more AI with like requests and honestly it's helping us evaluate bid specs and terms and
Hmm.
conditions for doing quotes because you know I get a bid spec for somebody's, hey, I want this dust collector for 20,000 CFM and I get 30 pages of stuff and it's just like all of
Hmm.
this that just it's jargon that doesn't apply. I'm like, I don't have time to read through all this. And they want to quote due at 2 p.m. on Friday, and they gave it to me at 5 p.m. And so I have effectively 16 hours to do this thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's where we're using AI, which is really good for like scanning documents and looking at
Yeah.
that. And then,
Agreed.
the other thing I'll tell you too is, you can use AI to, come up with an idea. Like right now, I'm looking at like doing a presentation, let's say for a mining convention coming up next year. And
Okay.
I said, hey, AI, go look at this website and see, is there a spot where I could do a presentation based on, my knowledge
Mm.
of dust collection? And it came back and said, what
Mm-hmm.
you could do is do a presentation or a paper on the top 10 dust collection issues and problems that you've seen in the field. And I'm like,
Nice. Nice.
that's brilliant. And so I said, hey, I'm like, cool. I'm like, and it needs a, 100-word abstract. I'm like, hey, can you help me
Yeah.
write that? Boom, and it spits out, a couple options of a 100-word abstract. I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, this is great.
Nice.
Now I'm not having to sit here and do this. And it's just like, I've seen all the issues. I've seen poor hood design. I've seen undersized or
Yeah.
oversized duct work. I've seen people doing the wrong size fan or the wrong size filter media or even the wrong technology. You got a cartridge collector when it should be a baghouse.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so, just using, I think it'll get better over time.
Yeah.
Just using, and even just using AI to even kind of roughly, do some hood design for me and some calculations. I've had it do a couple hood generations, and
Mm.
it actually wasn't half bad to just like,
Okay.
here's my little hand sketch. Can you take this and make a little 3D of it? And it just draws
Yeah.
it, it doesn't do CAD, but it just does a little quick presentation of it. I'm like, this is, and it took it, 10 or 15 seconds. It would have taken me 5 or 10 minutes to sketch something out by hand or by CAD. And now I can just use
Yeah.
this little. So it's helping us in that regard on the front end.
Good.
On the back
Good.
end and in the field, it's not there yet because, it's so dependent upon what each customer is experiencing.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, I was thinking, no, those are fair. So it sounds like you all have adopted some technologies to kind of help you with your day-to-day tasks and
Yep.
some brainstorming, which is awesome. As more buildings become more integrated, or plants from that perspective, I mean, can you foresee a smart, dust collection system in
Yeah.
the next 3 to 5 years? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, our competitor, I'll say Torrent has one right now.
Okay.
I think it's called their IQ system, which
Mm-hmm.
is pretty good. Um, and I think Camville's working on one, and we've got one that we're working with another company, I believe called Sensicon, and they have like 4 or 5 different monitor devices.
Mm-hmm.
One is differential pressure, another one's compressed
Mm-hmm.
air, another one's humidity. I think they do temperature, and you can merge
Mm-hmm.
these into one unit. And then they've got it to where
Mm-hmm.
you can either have it on plant Wi-Fi and
Mm-hmm.
it's got a signal that'll send it up to like 10 miles, or you can also do a cell phone one where you pay a monthly fee. And then it'll take
Mm.
a snapshot of the system every 15 minutes and then it'll upload it to the cloud. And now you're tracking it. If I could get somebody
Nice.
to give me data on this on a system once, every 2 or 3 hours, that'd be great. So
Mm-hmm.
the fact that we can get this technology to do this every 15 minutes, it gives me a
Mm-hmm.
snapshot. And then since we're the OEM, I can log in and I can go take a look at any of these collectors that are operating, in
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee, Florida, wherever. And then that way we can even set up alarms where it'll say, hey, this pressure drop here is approaching. Now I can call the customer and say, hey, are you guys doing that? Or is that the
Mm-hmm.
filters actually? And now, hey, you should probably order a set of filters because your filters are shot. And so I think
Yeah.
that's what we're seeing, and I think that's the direction we're going. And so we're starting to kind of get that system built for ourselves and develop that in the background
Nice, nice. In my mind,
for
I'm getting
ourselves,
excited
develop
for you
that background.
because that sounds like some recurring revenue
Right.
that can definitely impact you all. And I think that's where a lot of companies are going. We can put it into place to kind of monitor your conditions and provide these alerts and get in front of it, predictive analysis and all that stuff, or predictive maintenance. That's something that's going to be very smart, I think, for the future anyway.
Right.
When it comes to, let's say you had a magic wand and you could change one thing about your operations today, what would it be?
My operations here at Scientific or
Yes.
just like the industry as a whole.
Well, that's a
Um,
great question. I was thinking just SCD, scientific dust collectors, but whatever you want to go with. Yeah.
I would say if I had a magic wand, I would say give me a normal incoming stream of business. Not the,
Okay.
no, because our industry is such a roller coaster ride where it's so
Mm,
dependent upon um, people in the plant and when they're in and out or on vacation.
mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's like holiday dependent. So like right now it's the summer. So now we're kind of seeing a lull because all the plant maintenance people and all that stuff, some of them are doing all the maintenance on
Mm-hmm.
the equipment that they bought earlier. And so we had a rush. And then we're
Mm-hmm.
not going to see any new orders, until let's say August or whatever when it heats up again, because now they're planning for delivery around the holidays,
Sure.
getting all the equipment in. And then October, same thing where now, oh, I've got all this extra budget now. I need to
Yeah.
have it installed before the end of the year. I need it shipped on site.
Yeah.
And then after the
Yeah.
Christmas and New Year's, everything shuts off because now it's Christmas holiday and all that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And now I don't get, so January's quiet and I don't see anything until February. It'd be nice to have a nice steady runway of
Yeah.
projects and business instead of just kind of doing this
Yeah.
up and down the entire
Understood.
time.
Understood.
You know,
Okay.
that's that would be my, and everybody sees it because, and unfortunately too, it's also politics driven. It's also
Sure.
driven by various, prices and everything like that. Right now we've seen
Mm-hmm.
steel is going up. The price of steel has gone up
Mm.
since we bought steel last
Yeah.
December of 2025. And
Yeah.
now here we are 6 or 7 months later, and like our price of sheet has gone up 30 or 40%.
Got it.
And
Wow.
I've
Wow.
got somebody quoting a duplicate system and I had to give them a new price. And I was like, I just bought this thing 6 months ago. I'm like, we live in a different world than we did 6 months ago. I can't help you with that.
Wow. 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 No, fair enough. Fair enough. All right, Brian, we will close with
Okay.
a quick
Okay.
rapid fire round. Okay.
All right.
Five
Rapid
short
fire.
questions,
Okay.
one sentence
Short
answers.
answer.
It could be a book, idea, or a framework.
I would say one of the mantras that my general manager that I when I first started here at Scientific came up with,
Hmm.
and it's no good deed goes unpunished.
That's
And
true.
where you can,
Yeah.
over engineer a system where you can volunteer to do this or you volunteer
Hmm.
more information and trying to do a good deed and it gets there in the field and then it's a complete cluster.
Yeah.
Like I've got an application right now where we bid this thing up and now I've got to do an air compressor and it's like we're trying to get this thing to work into our system and integrate it and it's
Hmm.
going to the site and it's not going to be feasible. And now it's just like, you know what? I'm not going to spend all of our engineering time and risk the company's name to try to fight this thing in there when, it's not there. Just trying to put a square
Hmm.
peg in a round hole. And it's just like, you know what?
Hmm.
Don't do a good deed for the customer really trying to do this. And, it's not going to work out in the end.
Fair enough. Fair enough. A misconception about dust collection you wish would just disappear.
Oh, I think there's probably two. Um,
Okay.
One, you know, I get the phone calls of somebody calls me up, hey, I need a dust collector. I need 12 cartridges. Okay, do you know what airflow you need? No, I just need 12 cartridges. Who told you need 12 cartridges? You know, I
Yeah.
that I
Where did
wish
that
that
come
would,
from?
yeah, no, right. So I wish that would disappear. What's your
Okay.
appetite? I don't know. I just need, and you get somebody that's in accounting or whatever, and somebody's saying, hey, our dust collector's not working. Go get us a new one.
Hmm.
What do you got now? Oh, it's 12 cartridges.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to do 12 cartridge collector. It's like you need something, you need to have your system
Yeah.
evaluated to find out truly what you need.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the other thing too is, it's a dust collector. It's not designed to, you don't just put this dust collector in a room and
Hmm.
think it's going to pull all the dust out. You're
Yeah.
still got this dusty environment. You need to have proper hooding, proper ducting. It's a whole system. Just because you have
Yeah.
this little dust collector sitting in there, you're not going to. I get phone calls all the time. Oh yeah, I've got a room that's this 10 by 10 by 20. What size dust collector? I mean, like that's not how it works.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So those are the two misconceptions I wish would just go away.
I felt it in your spirit.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. Because I get the phone calls at least once or twice a month.
Okay. If you were a Marvel character, who would you be?
Because every
Does
once in
someone
a while,
call you
I
about
got the,
filters? I mean, you
oh,
know.
I can go off. I've crossed red lines. I've gotten green. I can do it. That would be me, hands down.
Okay. Okay. A technology you're excited about outside of your own industry.
I am excited about AI and its prospect of integrating into CAD, I'll say.
And that's
And
happening. That's
it's
happening.
happening, and it's
Yeah.
not there yet
Mm-hmm.
because that would truly help me out.
Mm.
So it's coming. It's probably 5 to 10 years away, and it'd be nice because I have to. I'll just say. So when we do our dust collectors,
Mm-hmm.
I have to draw everything in 2D because it's a panel shop. So I'm sheet metal. I'm a sheet
Mm-hmm.
metal. And so I have to put everything in 2D panels so that my guys in the shop can put the panels on there for the plaza table and put it all together.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've got Scientific's been in business since 1979. I've got all these hand drawings that we did. I've got 2D drawings that we did before we even had 3D capabilities. I've got 3D capability now, but it's just there's no time for us to invest to completely 3D overhaul our whole catalog.
Uh,
And so it'd be nice to say,
mm,
all right, scan this 2D drawing here with all three views and boom, give
mm-hmm.
me a 3D model. And it's coming
Mm,
there. I mean, there are some technologies that can give you kind of a rough 3D box, but
yeah.
it'd be nice to say, here's a 2D drawing of a collector, put that into 3D, and it does it.
Got it. Understood. No, that makes sense. Okay. Last one. The
Yeah.
future belongs to those who finish that sentence. The future belongs to those who.
Future belongs to those, I would say, that have patience. I mean, not that jump off the handle
Mm,
right away. You sit back and you watch, you don't just react to everything. You gotta take
mm,
everything calm and collected.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you come in and say, all right, what is, it applies to politics, it applies to finances, it applies to the stock market, it applies to business. You
Mm-hmm.
don't want to rush into things. You got to have the patience to say, all right, how are we doing this? You don't want to just get it, oh my gosh, I got to figure this out now. It's
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
the steps down.
That's awesome. No, that's awesome. Yeah. Brian, listen, this was fantastic.
I agree.
Thanks for breaking down
Yeah.
the engineering, the innovation that you all are doing, the real world impact behind scientific
Yeah.
dust collectors. For everyone listening, if you want to learn more about SDC and the work Brian and his team are doing, check out the links in the show notes. Brian, thank you for coming aboard.
Thank you for having me, Nathan. Appreciate you.
And then, as always, thanks for tuning in. And if you don't know, now you know, Vay.